Okay. Hello, and welcome to our podcast, where we look at the headlines, and Steve comments, and I react. I don't know what Steve will be talking about, so it's as much a surprise for me as it is for you. Always interesting and fascinating insights as well. So, over to Steve.
Hi, people. Big hand. Um, so, today, I think I'm going to have to do a bit of background to come to the point where where I want to come to at the end. Um, Bearing in mind that we're not political and we don't have any political agenda. So, anyway, we record these podcasts on a Thursday. It's important to say that because what I'm going to talk about started to happen on the Friday after the last podcast. And normally, my news, the things that I get from the news, I get a little bit nearer to the next Thursday because then it'll be all still fresh. And from my sources, where I get the news from, which are from the independent sources, they're normally 1 or 2 days ahead of the mainstream media, which is why we always seem to be ahead of the curve when I touch on certain subjects. But like I said, this happened the day after the last podcast, and it's still important today. And what happened was so grave in my mind that it needs to be continued with this subject. So let's go. So the European Space Agency, they do the weather forecasts for Europe, for mainland Europe, like the Met Office would do the forecast for the UK. You know, here in Brazil, they've got their equivalent to the Met Office. And in mainland Europe, it's the European Space Agency. And they sent out a weather forecast for mainland Europe, saying that mainland Europe was going to go into a huge heat wave, and that there would be temperatures of up to 48, 49, even 50 degrees centigrade in Europe. So, what they confused the ground temperature with the air temperature. Now we know here in Brazil that in the summertime, when the temperature gets to be around about 37, 36, 37 degrees centigrade, the best friend of man is one of these, is a flip-flop. Because if you walk on the pavement at 37 degrees in your bare feet, you burn your feet. Sometimes the asphalt on the road is nigh on melting, is soft, it's nigh on melting. So we know that on the floor. I remember watching one of these programs like Dactari or something like that when I was a kid, and one of the opening scenes was the quivering waves of the heat coming off the road. You know, so the heat starts on a hot day in Australia. You know, you can see the heat shimmering as the heat comes off the road. So we know that the ground temperature is a lot hotter than the air temperature. The air temperature normally is taken at 2 meters height from the ground. In a town or city, they have various points of measuring the temperature, which is why sometimes you get a wind chill factor in England You know, they have a wind chill factor. It's going to feel like it's 4 degrees, but the temperature in general is 10 degrees, because one of the sensors for the temperature is whether there's going to have a breeze, and that obviously is going to have a lower temperature because the cold air is passing by the sensor. So anyway, Die Spiegel, which is a newspaper in Germany, was the first newspaper to put this information out, that there would be this heat wave of 48, 49 degrees in Europe, and all the other news outlets followed Die Spiegel's footpath. They did the same thing. They followed on, and which is what we're going to come to in a little while, about how we get our news, the news that's published in the newspapers, how they get the news to present to us. And so on the Friday, I was listening to Ian Collins on Talk Radio, and he was saying, you know, it must be really, really hot in Europe, because they're saying it's 49 degrees, 50 degrees. And people, very much like myself, abroad, in Europe, were phoning in to say, no, it's 32, it's 32, it's a normal day. Die Spiegel, they wrote an apology, if you like, and said that their temperatures were wrong. However, the BBC in the UK, they didn't do that. They wanted to continue this story of these super high temperatures, and they sent a correspondent, who's a climate correspondent, to Italy, I think it was, or Spain or Italy. He flew there, which is, you know, considering he's a climate correspondent, his carbon footprint must have been huge, if you're going to go that way, you know.
Yeah.
And he said that, you know, the temperatures were it was a heat wave. It really was a heat wave, and, you know, the temperature really high. He didn't give any temperatures. He just said it was really, really hot. And what happened next is that, like I said, these people were phoning in, calling and saying, you know, it's under 32. So I went to the website of the BBC, and there was no apology. There was no you know, correction. They to use an American phrase, they doubled down, and they were showing photographs, images of people washing their heads in fountains in Italy. You know, to well, I mean, I've been to Italy, and I've been to Spain. I've lived in Spain, and on a hot day, you know, when it's like 36, 37, people do that anyway. You know, it isn't because it's 40 degrees. And I'll tell you, you know, if it really was 48, 49 degrees, you'd have people frying. You'd have people fainting all over the place. And there weren't. It was just a normal summer day in Europe. And it has been hotter in the 1990s. That's when I started to do some research. And in the 1990s, in Italy, some of the surface temperatures in Italy were over 50 degrees centigrade. 50 degrees, which is why the flip-flops always come in handy. Yeah. Never leave the house without flip-flops on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's like golden rule. Yeah.
So anyway, where did I get to? Ah, yes. And then came the fires in Greece, in Rhodes, in Greece. The local fire department said it was arson. You know, a bit like the fire in Canada. I don't know if you recall.
Yeah.
I said that on the satellite images of the fires in Canada, there was like 5 or 6 focal points of where the fire started from and where the smoke was coming from. So it wasn't a natural occurrence.
Mm.
Um, it was arson, said the police in uh, in Greece.
Mm.
And I can understand that because when I was a kid, uh, we lived near to a place called the Crags, and sometimes the schoolboys, when they were wagging, playing truant from school,
Mm.
normally they had the habit of smoking, and
Yeah.
they'd set the grass on fire. They'd do it just as a prank, and
Yeah.
and the whole of the Crags near to where I lived would go up in flames,
Mm.
and the fire brigade had to come and put it all out and all that. And so, however, even on talk radio or
Mm.
talk TV, depends on what you like to call about it. They said that because of the heat wave,
Mm.
the fire in Greece, you had the fire in Greece, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting because they said that on the Monday, and over the weekend we had the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Richard Tice, also on talk radio,
Mm.
he has a Sunday program, a Saturday program. I like a Saturday program, and he went ballistic because the BBC was taking their stance about it being a
Mm.
super hot time in mainland Europe,
Mm.
and on the Monday, Neil Oliver,
Mm.
who's also he's on, I think he's on GB News.
GB News, yeah. Yeah.
GB News. He too gave a good scolding for the BBC
Mm.
because they wouldn't, they wouldn't change their tune. But I was
Mm.
really surprised on the Monday that on Talk TV, on the news bulletin which they have on the o'clock of every hour,
Mm.
the lady said because of the heat wave, there was
Mm.
this fire in Rhodes,
Okay.
and that stopped being a news item when she
Mm.
said that. It became an opinion piece when she said that
Right.
because she said something that she couldn't prove.
Right. That, I mean, again, that's interesting because yeah, they're giving the news. We all know there's a bit of difference between the newscaster who reads a script in front of them.
Yeah,
They're not really meant to deviate because they don't give
that's
an
right.
opinion.
Right.
To a certain point, I mean, yeah, talk radio and probably GB News have to be careful. They're giving it that is the official line. So what they're doing is probably playing a game. They're giving the official line to keep happy with Ofcom, etc., etc. Then when it's obviously an opinion piece, and this is what people are forgetting. I mean, basically, it's a good job we
Well,
have these opinion things now that actually are open discussion, which is creating the
yeah.
administrations, whatever you want, a bit of a problem because that's why they
The
need to shut
program,
them
the
down.
programs, the programs that they have on Talk
Yeah.
Radio,
Yeah.
and GB News are magazine programs.
Exactly. Yeah.
However, every hour they have a news bulletin,
But that's what I mean.
which should be just news.
Well,
But when the lady said because of this happened,
yeah,
that stopped being news because she couldn't prove what she was saying.
yeah, I know what you're saying, and I'm just trying to think why. Again, giving an opinion why talk radio would be doing that. Yeah, I know it's frustrating. Maybe they have to do that because that's come from an official source somewhere. You'd have to dig down. You'd have to challenge talk radio. The fact they got Richard Tice on there, who's challenging it, and others.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
on the morning times,
yeah,
like I said, the guy,
yeah,
the guy in the morning, he he was ridiculing it.
yeah. Well,
Um,
yeah. It
because
might be.
the people were phoning in saying, no, it's only 32.
Yeah, I know. I mean, yeah, and I could get into that in a minute. I'm just trying to think why they would do that on. Yeah, I mean, she was reading something. Somebody prepared a script. Maybe somebody in the office had done something. Maybe it's a subtle way of having a bit of balance. Again, it's a statement of fact, which I'd agree with you is wrong. But the news should be fact based on what could be backed up. If the official line from the various Met offices is it's because of extreme heat, etc., that's come from an official source, whether or not you agree with the official source or not. And that's probably what they have to draw it from. The rest of it is conjecture, as I say. Yeah. It is very, very frustrating at the moment what's happening. At the moment, we've got more information that we know what to do with. Overall, as people, the internet has done that for us. You and I don't go with the, I wouldn't say official line. We like to understand what it is we're agreeing to. Yeah. Before you sign off anything, you agree to it. You read before you sign a contract, you read it. And that's what we're doing. Yeah. That's what people don't do. I mean, a lot of us now get our news, not necessarily from even the headlines on the hour from talk radio. We get it from our favorite casters. We might even watch a five-minute video of different people. We've probably now got the broadest band of opinions we'll ever had. The old thing is, before you make a decision, listen to 3 independent sources. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And this is what we've got now. We've all got this ability. Now I don't know what TalkSport's editorial line is. They try and tread the middle ground, I think, very, very much so. They're not GB News. But GB News treads the middle ground as well, as much as it can. It'll have people from the opposite sides. Free Smog sitting down with a climate change activist or whatever they want to call themselves. I mean, fair comment. And he said he found it quite interesting talking to this young lady. And I think she quite enjoyed having a soapbox there as well, to express her opinion, which is what it should be. But yeah, I mean, yeah, when somebody's stating a fact on a headline, I mean, it should be this has happened. There's been fires in Greece, not because of something. There's been fires in Greece.
Right. That's right. So we accept television a lot of the time without thinking about it.
Well, that's it, yeah.
And there's a guy in Paraíba, which is, for people who don't know, is the state above Pernambuco.
Yeah.
Me and Mark were in Pernambuco.
Yeah.
And the state above is called Paraíba, and in the capital of Paraíba is a place called João Pessoa, which is the capital. And there's one guy, Roberto Cavalcante. He's an ex-senator. When I knew the guy, he was senator in the year 2000, and he owned a subsidiary of Radio Transamerica. He had a newspaper, Correio de Paraíba, and he also had a television company which did the local news for the television. Of course, his little world of communication, it never spoke ill of his political party. It only spoke ill of the opposition. When you came, I think I remember, because I was producing an event in Paraíba, in João Pessoa, in the year 2000, and I think they had the elections for state governor. And so there was an awful lot of this speaking bad of the opposition, but saying absolutely nothing, or painting his party to be whiter than the driven snow. And we see this a lot in the United States, where you got some channels that are heavily to the left
Yeah.
and some that are to the right. And so you get this, which is why, of course, you and I, we have to get these three sources to find out who this middle ground so we can find out more or less what the truth is. And I feel that, you know, these days, the news, TV Global here, they have when they have the news at the night, the Jornal Nacional. A lot of the time now, also they're giving opinions. They never used to do this. They never used to do this. But sometimes now they give opinions instead of just giving the pure news.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous, you know.
I mean, again, yes, this is how it's changed a bit. Yes, people, the BBC used to have newscasters who were very good at doing what they did, and interviewing people, and then not expressing an opinion, but finding out the truth. It's like we used to have Jeremy Paxman in the UK. There's
Right.
there are others, yeah, and who would, I've mentioned it before, would keep drilling a politician or a notable person until they gave an answer. He so much so they hated going on with him. Well, I never knew what his political views were. I've read books by him. I've never really known what he actually believes, because he was such a neutral person. Yeah, he was so knowledgeable. I mean, he does a university challenge. I still think he's still doing it. His knowledge of everything is so good, or it might be a journalist's knowledge, broad but shallow, but they can drill down, you know. But yeah, he could do that, and that's always interesting. Now, we also used to have in the UK, and I'll change the subject, the conversation, since it's about news cycle. We'll get back to environment in a minute. We also used to have question time, which was a once weekly question panel where they had theoretically politicians or people, sometimes even celebrities, actors even, or people, or musicians, who would sit on a panel. This used to be quite balanced, quite fairly done. I caught an episode of it a while ago, and let's put it this way, it's not as I remembered it.
No.
It was evidently stacked one way. That's all I'm going to say. And people being shut down, and even you could feel the hostility from they have an audience. The audience, it was dividing people. It wasn't informing. It was dividing, in my opinion. I mean, you know, maybe I'm looking at it through slightly different lenses now. Let's put it that way, as we would say. I've always been cynical. You know, what's on the news is on the news. Yeah, the trouble is we have now where the BBC was respected because their news gathering was incredible. You know, during the Falklands War, the Argentinians were listening to the BBC to find out what was actually happening. It was a respected news thing. It was always neutral. And yes, you could go on it and be 90% certain. I mean, I'm not saying the BBC's never been biased. I mean, certainly in the BBC was an entertainer, essentially. And we all know the entertainment industry has always been leaning a certain way, always, which is the creative side, which is not wrong in itself. It had to be a little bit anti-establishment to find things. Like I said, I was watching this and I'm thinking, I've not been informed by anything. I've heard it, like you say, an opinion, a driven opinion. And now we're finding out more and more what's going on. And it's a shame to see it, because like I say, the BBC, when I'm watching clips from programs in the 70s, 80s and the deep 90s, when it was absolutely brilliant, and it did challenge, it challenged everything. And it's like you say, now they'd be challenging. The BBC at one point would be challenging, is it because of climate change, or is there other reasons for this? That would be a question that was being asked to somebody on the news. Why is it happening? Yeah, this guy who went on a vacation to Greece. Well, no, he went for 48 hours or something, which makes it even worse.
For 5 days.
Yeah, yeah.
For 5 days.
5 days. I mean, yeah, he went there. So the place is such a hellhole, fears of fire and being burnt alive. The guy could go and spend 5 days there.
He didn't go to Greece. I think he went to Spain. He went to Spain or Italy.
Yeah, okay, wherever.
He's just sunning it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they've got people on the ground there already. Yeah, he did something like, yeah, it'd be 1,500 mile car journey. Yeah, I mean, these people live in a different bubble. They live in a different world. I begin to realize that. I think the tide is beginning to turn against them. People are beginning to question things. Not only us on podcasts, not only podcasters, people in the street, even the chattering classes, the middle classes are beginning to, in the UK, question what is going on. Why are we being told this? And it's beginning to affect their pocket, which starts to really start affecting people.
Well, this thing about the heat wave in Europe, you know, once the people started phoning up the radio station, saying that the temperatures were like 32 degrees, and once the Spiegel, which was the only newspaper to pedal backwards and say no, these temperatures are wrong.
Yeah.
Once that sort of news gets out, then yes, people are going to look.
Yeah.
You know, because imagine in the old days when there was no internet.
Yeah.
This guy goes to Spain and he says, "I'll tell you what, it's really hot here."
Yeah.
You know, and people believe that it's 49 degrees. You know, and stay in the shade.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, again, when this was all being said, because like say, I live here, I live in my flip flops when I go out, or I don't wear flip flops. I have a different type of sandal. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you walk on the beach here on the sand by the Atlantic, and it is hot sometimes until you get to where the water is. That's nice relief. Yeah, so you keep your sandal on until then. Even the locals here who have grown up with it, they know to put their sandals on.
When I was a tourist here, a friend, he turned out to be a friend of mine. He's died now, unfortunately. Yeah. He bet me that I couldn't walk from the beach to the car, without any shoes on. Yeah, and I wasn't allowed to run.
Ooh, that's hot cold. Ooh.
And I wasn't allowed. There was only one place where you could get relief, which is in the shadow of a post of a light street light. Yeah, the sun cast a shadow, and you stood in that shadow just to relieve your feet.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, it's the old thing with the dogs. They even here now they're warning about people with dogs with the pads. I mean, the Brazilians have grown up with it. The dogs are sensible. They head for the shade. Yeah. I mean, it's the old thing of mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. It is it's a problem here. It's like you said, I've not actually seen any roads melt. Sometimes we like where my in-laws live, there are no tarmac roads. It's all sand, etc. Which is actually, I wouldn't say makes sense, but yes, in the heat that we have here, we live in the tropics effectively. We live
subtropical.
Well, yeah, subtropical. We're just below the equator. Yeah, this morning at the moment it's 27 degrees. That's in my that's official.
And we haven't reached spring yet.
No. I mean,
just so the audience, from the northern hemisphere, they'll have an idea. You know how warm it gets here. You know, we haven't reached spring yet, and it's 27. I
I mean,
mean, 27 is a summer's day in the UK.
yeah. I mean, I had a client on this morning though, on a client, talked to a client this morning, and they're sitting there in a fleece from South Brazil, 11 degrees.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here 24 degrees with clouds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear now, but and that is the contrast. Brazil is a big country, and that's what people can't get over. With the size of a continent, and yeah, we do have a different climate from Rio, although the Rio gets hot as well. Let's be honest, it gets to the temperatures they're talking about in Spain, these dreadful hell-like temperatures.
When there's no wind in Rio de Janeiro,
Yeah,
you get Rio 40 degrees.
yeah, they call it hair hole or something. But yes, we call it hell Sifi up here sometimes. We're hot or really hot. Yeah, to clean that up a bit. But yes, yeah, I mean, and this is it. We're used to it anyway. Yeah, but what's getting on, and there is an agenda. For me, there's an agenda being pushed about this environment, and is it fake news? I don't know. I study astronomy, where you look at the climates on other planets. Yeah, climates operate in long-term cycles as well as short-term. Years ago, we were being told the world was going to be flooded. It's not happened. It's incredible what they can predict with weather forecasting now, the number crunching and the modeling. We know what's going to be like in a month. But when they start talking about temperature from 1,200 years ago, it's like, well, we know that the Earth is still in evolution. It's still evolving. There's other factors. Is human involvement part of it? Probably is. It is probably going to have some effect. How much is that effect is conjecture. People say follow the science. What is science but something that's researched all the time and questioned?
That's right.
And they say to us plebs, follow the science. I'm not an engineer. I've been engineering trained. I'm not a graduate engineer, but I've certainly done engineering and had to do the research and everything involved with that. And you question everything. Why is this? What is this?
No, there's no such thing as settled science.
Yeah.
Nobody can say the science is settled. That doesn't exist.
Yeah, and this is what, well, well, I mean, we're now living in a generation, let's be honest, where people will question what a woman is. You know, so, I'm sorry, somebody tells me this about you know, well, yeah, we're following the science. I don't know what a woman is though. I'm sorry, credibility is just gone, and I know it's controversial to say that.
Yeah.
Controversial to actually say there's a difference between men and women. I don't understand this. I'm sorry. Maybe somebody can explain it in the comment section below. Probably quite aggressively if you want. We'll take that. Yes. Anyway, I don't know if you anything else.
So the most recent thing that happened, well, first of all, in Europe and North Africa, there were a couple of other forest fires. Which is nothing new. I remember in the UK, we used to have public information films about, you know, when you go into the woods, you have to take all the rubbish with you, because if you leave glass bottles and things like that, they could act like a magnifying glass, and create a forest fire in the UK in the summer.
Yeah.
But what happened recently was a tornado in Switzerland. In the canton of Neuchâtel, and they tried to blame this on extreme weather too.
Yeah.
However, Peter Groenmeier, he's from the European Severe Storm Laboratories.
Yeah.
He said that in Europe there are around about 300 tornadoes that happen every year.
Yeah.
So, you know, but these other tornadoes are never mentioned because it wasn't in the flow of the news about climate You know,
Yeah.
this thing about this thing about Switzerland
Yeah.
made the headlines because one person died.
Okay. Yeah.
I know the news they like love it when there's a death.
Yeah.
That's the first. And also, it was on the coattails of these forest fires
Mm.
and these supposed high temperatures in Europe, which, for all intents and purposes, didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, so and they tried to add this onto extreme weather.
Yeah.
Extreme, yes, it was because it doesn't happen all
Yeah.
every day. However, in the global aspect of things in Europe, it almost does happen every day
Yeah.
because it's 300 a year and
Yeah.
there's only 365 days in a year. You know, so it's a normal phenomenon.
Mm.
Perhaps not for Neuchâtel, but it is in Europe. So
Yeah.
you know, and that's basically my conclusion
Okay.
to what we're talking about today
Oh
is
yeah.
that the extreme weather, extreme in between, the weather is normal.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It is, and yeah, some people are. I don't know,
And
using it
the
or
press will make what they want of it.
well, this is it, and we have to understand. I mean, the next thing is with the next ice age is coming or something. That's the normal cycle, yeah. And
Well, they tried that one as well. They,
yeah,
they, they did try that one as well.
I mean, and we've had our ice age. We had a new one. We've had now got the heat. We probably will go into a cooling down period. Um, like I say, our understanding of our own world isn't yet complete. We don't
No,
understand everything. How can we? We've only been here. Human understanding has only been here but a very short time. Um,
and we know even less about under the sea.
yeah, exactly.
We know almost nothing
Yeah.
about under the sea,
I mean,
which is a subject for another
yeah. We're trying to do space
another conversation.
exploration.
It's a 5 hour conversation.
Yeah, yeah. We're to do space exploration. We're trying to understand under the sea. We're now having imploding submarines. It's kind of not really helping. But anyway, I think before we go into something else, okay. Well, there's our allotted time done.
Okay,
Thank you, Steve, for bringing the things
let's
to the
chat in again.
table. Um, we'll continue this probably no doubt another time because it'll be going on,
Yeah,
and hope to all see you again in the future. Okay, goodbye.
bye bye. Bye. Be kind again.
Yeah, behave. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. We look forward to seeing you again. Goodbye.